does the black man serve the white man? Why does everything the black man do benefit the white man? Why does the black man say freedom is doing what I want to do? And why is it that everything he wants to do enriches the European?
Welcome to the desert of the real.
I was watching, coincidentally, something last night. It was talking about a North Korea defector. So it was a video about how North Korea was one of the most, hardest countries to escape. So then I go and I look up one example of a North Korean defector. And she talks about how when she defected from North Korea, that she didn't understand the concept of freedom. She didn't understand the concept of romance. She didn't understand the concept of love. She didn't understand none of that. She just defected to China because she thought if she went there, she could get a bowl of rice. And then she thought freedom would be able to just watch TV and not get caught by the government. That's an example, or just an example of not similar, but let's apply that similar way to Black people. If I don't know what it's like to have my own, then I'm not going to want to pursue it because I've never been in that situation. If I've never been free or I've never understood the concept of self-determination and independence, then how can I possibly advocate for it? I don't even know what independence even means or what that is like.
Yeah, it's like what I said. We do a lot of complaining about what people are not doing. Like this, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. And then what I've always find interesting, and this has been for years, people will then use as examples nationalist groups. Don't you? Do you find that happens often? Like they'll on one hand they say, "Oh, you guys are nationalists, always talking about this and this, black, black, black. Why don't you be like the Chinese?" I'm like, "What? Like, why don't you act like the Jews?" I'm like, "What? Do you not hear what you're saying?" So you're going to use as an example nationalist groups to explain how we shouldn't be nationalists. That's like I said, intellectualism is not our strong point in collectively.
Mm-hmm. And not understanding and breaking things down. When you say, well, why don't we do like these communities? Understand that context matters, background matters, all of that stuff matters. It's not just vague, oh, look at this community, look at that community. Okay. You have to understand, even if I look at other immigrant groups, one is that they don't deal with anti-blackness or Afrophobia. They don't deal with Afrophobia. And I'm going to start using the word Afrophobia because that's what it is. It's against African people, against Africa and the diaspora. When you have a country that's Afrophobic, like the US, and American society being Afrophobic in general, yes, immigrants come over here and they do better for a multitude of reasons. One, they are immigrants. Okay. So they just got here. You have to factor in that. One, people say, two people say the immigrant work ethic. You could say that, but that's used to say why Black Americans can't get far ahead. When the reality of it is that the system was not structured to be hostile towards non-African immigrants or non-African people. It wasn't structured that way. Even when we looked at Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad, what they were saying about other communities is that was decades ago and we're still talking about it. So not understanding that this stuff has been systematic and not looking at the Afrophobia, I think is a huge problem because you're talking about groups that don't have the same background, don't have the same history. Yes, they may have faced discrimination. Yes, that's accurate. But at the end of the day, there is a racial hierarchy in America. And Afrophobia is the top of it. And Black people, African people are at the bottom.
Let me give an example of using what you were talking about with the North Korean defector, but just in a different context. Let's say you have a Black family and a white family, and well, I say a Black couple and a white couple, and the white couple has a child, and the Black couple has a child, but the context and the culture in that white family is okay. Once the child is born, it's like we're off to the races. Like if you was to look at it from the timeline, the races just starting when you're born, right? But this child knows and the parents know that you're going to become an adult. So we got to prepare for your adulthood. And then even when you become an adult, you have to spend the majority of that working adult life preparing for your retirement. Now compare that to a Black kid that's raised by Black parents and they don't teach them none of that shit. It's just go get a job and be happy. Don't you think that the outcomes are going to come out are going to be dramatically different? Don't you think that the moves that that person makes throughout their life is different? And what is that based on? The context in which they grew up in. Most people don't think about retirement when they work. When you're 20 years old, you're not thinking about, oh, let me get my 401k and my stock options and this and all that. There's no sense of urgency about your retirement. Unless you come from a situation or you come from people where they can drill that into you and say, hey, you got to prepare for this and that. If you have somebody bending your ear, but the average person, when you're in the prime of your life, you're not thinking about, let me amass as much money as I can so that when I retire, I'll be able to live comfortably. Nobody's thinking about that shit. So it's the same thing. It's like, how can you do what you don't know? How can you make certain moves that make sense when you don't even know the full context of what you're even dealing with? And a properly functional culture would take care of that, but we don't have that. It's like, it just amazes to me, like how Black folks talk about being American and talk about power and talk about this and talk about that, but don't do it in practice. Like in hip hop, they love talking about the mob, but they don't act like the mob. They love talking about the mafia and John Gotti and this and that, but they don't arrange their crime the same way that the mafia does. It's just interesting to me. It's like we worship this stuff and we say we respect it, but we don't put it into our lives and practice the things that we say that we respect so much.
You can't compare to the status right here. Legendary worldwide, we can battle right here. Listen, Junior, I'ma tear back your wig. This ain't TV, but I'll show you what a fear factor is. Stop grilling me, and all that fronting is killing me. You leave me no choice but to hurt your feelings, G. About to slap rappers around and bruise